right, now let's look at body paragraphs. Before we start writing our body paragraphs, we need to figure out what reasons we want to use to support our argument. Our claim we made in our thesis statement was that only governments have sufficient means to tackle the primary causes of obesity. So what are the primary causes of obesity? Let's just go ahead and make a quick list and write down a few things that come to mind. The first thing that comes to my mind is sugar. Sugar and sugar addiction is a huge cause of obesity. Another problem, people eating too much fast food. It's generally very unhealthy, very high in calories. So our two reasons that we're going to go with are, number one, sugar overconsumption and addiction, and number two, overconsumption of fast food. I think these two reasons are good enough to get us started. Now what we're going to do is almost repeat the same process from when we made our thesis statement. We're going to make topic sentences for each of our body paragraphs using the reasons above. Just like we said, the thesis statement should explain what our entire paper is going to be about. Each topic sentence should also explain what each body paragraph is going to be about. Remember, while these are topic sentences for body paragraphs, they should also still support our thesis statement. Let's go ahead and make a topic sentence for our first body paragraph using reason number one. One of the leading causes of obesity is the overconsumption of sugar due to widespread sugar addiction. Now, what we want to do is read that topic sentence and then try to relate it to our thesis statement to see if it actually supports it. So just a reminder, our thesis statement was, I completely agree that it is the government's duty to work to reduce obesity because only they have sufficient means to effectively tackle the primary causes. Well, we're close to supporting it, but we're actually only talking about obesity and sugar here, and we're not mentioning anything about the government or their role. So we can actually improve this topic sentence a bit to make it more directly support our thesis statement. One of the leading causes of obesity that governments could attempt to reduce is the overconsumption of sugar due to widespread sugar addiction. How about now? Does it support our thesis statement? It does, but it could be better. The argument we made in our thesis statement was that the reason governments have the responsibility is because only they have the means. And while yes, we are discussing the government now, we're not mentioning anything about the means. So let's try one more time. One of the leading causes of obesity that governments have the power to significantly reduce is the overconsumption of sugar due to widespread sugar addiction. All right, third time's a charm. Does our topic sentence now fully support our thesis statement? Yes, it does. It directly ties back into our claim. And if you remember from the definition of a thesis statement, we have to be making a claim and supporting it, providing reasons, examples, or evidence. So that's why we're trying to make sure that everything ties directly back to the thesis statement. All right, remember how we came up with two reasons to support our thesis statement? Well, now we're going to come up with reasons for our topic sentence in the same way. So why should governments use their power to reduce overconsumption of sugar? I can think of two reasons. Number one, food companies add sugar to food that leads to addiction and causes overeating. And number two, governments can influence these companies in many ways to stop this behavior. Now, before we go any further, let's check and see if these reasons support our topic sentence. Do these reasons directly support the idea that governments have the power to reduce overconsumption of sugar and addiction? Yes, they do. If food companies are adding sugar, which is causing the overeating and addiction, and if governments have many ways to stop them, then that supports the argument that governments have the power to reduce sugar overconsumption and addiction. I know this is probably starting to sound repetitive, but I want you to notice just how linear this is. You should always be able to directly tie everything you write upward to the sentence or argument that it supports, all the way up to your thesis statement. By keeping to this practice, you will let your laser-focused thesis statement guide you and keep you focused through your entire paper. The next step is to put these reasons into sentence form. Because large food companies add sugar to many of the foods that we eat, Many people today have become addicted to it, causing them to overeat and become obese. Governments have methods available to influence the behavior of large food companies and control how much sugar they add to our food choices. The next step is to come up with an example that supports our reasons. We want this example to be relevant and easy to follow for the person grading our exam. So what is an example of a method that the government could use to influence the behavior of large food companies when it comes to sugar? Well, the most obvious example I can think of would be taxes. Governments have the power to tax companies in order to discourage them from behavior they don't like. So in this example, we could propose a tax on the behavior of adding sugar to food. Now we just need to write that in sentence form, something like this. For example, the government could place a tax on any products that are made with excessive levels of added sugar, which would make it less profitable to sell these addictive foods and eventually lead to less of their consumption. That sounds like a pretty good example to me. What do you think? Does it support our two reasons above? It definitely does. But I think we can add in a couple finishing touches to make it even more laser focused. By adding the word food in front of products, we can be just a bit more specific. And if we change make it less profitable to sell to make it less profitable for large food companies to sell, then we're tying in even better to our above reasons. So now our example reads, for example, the government could place a tax on any food products that are made with excessive levels of added sugar, which would make it less profitable for large companies to sell these addictive foods and eventually lead to less of their consumption. Since we already tested our reasons above to see if they directly support our topic sentence, and we already tested that topic sentence to make sure it supports our thesis statement, all we have to do now is make sure our example directly supports our reasons. And yes, it definitely does. It's laser focused and completely relevant to the rest of our paper. Now let's go ahead and put everything together that we've come up with so far. All right, so this is going to be a bit to read here, but this is our entire outline so far. And remember, this is the most important thing that I can teach you in this course, because just by following this outline alone, you're going to improve your scores. You don't even have to improve your English a single bit. You learn to write academic essays using this outline, your scores are going to go up. All right, so let's read the whole outline. It is a commonly held position that it is the government's obligation to combat obesity. I completely agree that it is the government's duty to work to reduce obesity because only they have sufficient means to effectively tackle the primary causes. One of the leading causes of obesity that governments have the power to significantly reduce is the overconsumption of sugar due to widespread sugar addiction. Because large food companies add sugar to many of the foods that we eat, many people today have become addicted to it, causing them to overeat and become obese. Governments have methods available to influence the behavior of large food companies and control how much sugar they add to our food choices. For example, the government could place a tax on any food products that are made with excessive levels of added sugar, which would make it less profitable for large companies to sell these addictive foods and eventually lead to less of their consumption. Hey, we're looking pretty good so far. If we read through that, we see we're on our way to having a well-organized, easy-to-follow paper. Next, we need another body paragraph just like the one we just wrote for sugar addiction, except this time for the second reason we came up with earlier, which was overconsumption of fast food. So now I want you to repeat the steps from above on your own to write your own body paragraph. You'll need to ask yourself, what is the problem with the overconsumption of fast food as it relates to our thesis statement? What are the reasons for this problem? What is an example of an action the government could take to solve this problem? Then follow these simple steps. Write your topic sentence. Write sentences for your two reasons for that topic sentence. Write your supporting example sentence. Test that each part supports the part before it. Meaning, ask yourself, does my example support my reason? Does my reason support my topic sentence? Follow those steps now and write your own body paragraph just like mine from before. Don't worry too much about vocabulary here. We're mainly concentrating on the structure and support tests. Once you finish, continue to the next section. How'd it go? Do you have your own body paragraph ready to plug into the essay? I went ahead and came up with a second one on my own just so we can complete the essay together. Here's my sentence. Another factor contributing to obesity that lawmakers could impact is the overconsumption of fast food. Fast food companies use aggressive marketing tactics along with speed and convenience to draw in more customers every year, which is leading to the overconsumption of their unhealthy food and further driving obesity levels higher. Governments could take even small steps, such as banning fast food advertisements in public spaces, as well as rejecting new fast food restaurants from public transportation hubs, such as train and metro stations, which would further reduce people's consumption and reduce obesity. Now, I don't expect your paragraph to be as long as mine, but once I got started writing it, I couldn't really stop. But the most important thing, everything supports the topic sentence. And I'm giving good reasons and examples that support the main argument in my thesis statement. So now, using either your paragraph or mine, here's what we have so far.